of Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom and Care, we would like to welcome you to Volume 5 of our series, Breaking the Silence. We are trying to cover humanitarian crises that didn't make headlines in 2022. And as I said, it is a series of 10, and Volume 5 is dedicated to Cameroon. Not each and every one of us had the chance to travel to Cameroon. So just to give you a little background on this country and the challenges Cameroon is facing when it comes to humanitarian and other challenges. So Cameroon has been hit by crises concerning humanitarian challenges for the past decade. So we've got a huge number of people, of internally displaced people, which had been taken care of. We have it compounded by natural disasters. We've got diseases such as cholera and obviously the economic impact of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. On top, we've got violent civil war. So we've got the opposing forces of the English-speaking part, which is the minority in Cameroon, and the French-speaking part, who do clash continuously. We've got the incursion of Boko Haram coming from Nigeria, who in the name of Islam and Sharia do kill. And so there's a lot of action and violence taking place. On top, we've got abuses by government forces who do tend to crack down political opposition. And we've got the fact of gender-based violence, child marriages, and women who do not have this full constitutional rights as men. So there's a huge plethora of topics we are going to address in the course of our web talk. And we're very happy to welcome our guests. For the time being, we've got one guest because the second guest is still on her way, and I hope she will be joining us in the course of our discussion. So I'm very happy to introduce to you Nafomi Burka. She served as program manager for Community Center for Integrated Development in the fields of gender equality and sexual reproductive health and rights. And she was appointed as co-executive director of this same entity. Nafomi has a Master of Public Health, and she worked in the huge field of gender-based violence, sex workers' rights, and youth and adolescent sexual reproductive health. So Nafomi, it's a pleasure and honor to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we have invited Esther Najomi Oman as well. She's executive director of Reach Out, which is a local, women-led and non-profit organization which aims to improve the lives of the most vulnerable. Esther has been supporting vulnerable people since 2000 and has been active in peace-building missions. We are still waiting for her to join us, so hopefully she will be with us. But for the time being, Nafomi, we're going to start, and please just give us an idea of how extreme challenges are when it comes to humanitarian aspects in Cameroon right now.
Thank you very much. So just to give a small introduction of the organization I work with. So I work with Community Center for Integrated Development, which is a youth and women-led organization committed to advancing the rights of women, girls, communities, and young people we work with. So the humanitarian crisis is the Cameroonian context, like you rightly said, Cameroon is torn apart by the triple crisis, right? We have the Central African Republic crisis, we have the Boko Haram crisis, and we have the Anglophone crisis. Talk less of the natural disasters and the public health emergencies we've been having. So this crisis has brought a setback, or has made us move far backwards to the goal of attaining gender equality in our context. So I'll we all know that the issue of gender equality with Cameroon as a country have actually been far behind when it comes to gender equality. But now with the humanitarian crisis, you discover that there are a lot of things that have happened. We have gender roles which have been changed. We have issues of militarized masculinities. We have issues of gender-based violence being recorded, and we have even issues when it comes to education. You see in cases like the far north regions, the regions, the Anglophone regions where schools have been shut down, girls are unable to go to school. And what happens in the next 30 years, the next 20 years, girls are not in those positions they ought to be to make informed decisions about their rights or bring the impact we need in the society to actually foster gender equality. So typically, we face as an organization who works with other women-led organizations. So we carry out a project called the Call to Action Field Implementation, where we work with in 8 regions of Cameroon torn apart by crisis and have been inhabitants of the refugees or the internally displaced persons. We work with 35 women-led organizations. So our work is centered around advancing human rights, making sure that people, the communities have access to timely services when it comes to gender-based violence, and just maybe building capacity of women-led organizations so that they are armed with the resources to actually respond to gender-based violence, because this humanitarian context or the crisis has actually proven to us that we are not actually ready when it comes to the response of gender-based violence in terms of capacity, in terms of timely response, and all of these things. So it's been really a struggle, given that we lack the capacity. Women-led organizations lack capacities in most regions to actually provide timely services, and the whole issue of patriarchy, which Cameroon is a society which is deeply rooted in patriarchy. So just by transforming gender or by bringing out gender transformative approaches, which was an issue, then again by really trying to work in the context of the humanitarian setting, which has brought a lot of issues, or which has actually set the agenda of gender equality and actually really backwards.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nafomi. To our audience, if you have any questions, comments, if anything bothering you, please do step forward and please give us your questions via the Q&A segment on the menu bar. That would be great. Nafomi, you have been working in your capacity. You have been working with CARE, right? What are the projects you have been joining? Just a moment for our technical part. We do hear an echo. So Marco, could you please try to fix it? There is a permanent echo, and I don't want our audience to suffer. And Nafomi is suffering too. I can tell there is a little bit of tech issue. Nafomi, your work and the project you are doing together with CARE, what is it?
Okay, I said just before this, so the project we are working with women-led organizations, 35 women-led organizations in 8 regions of Cameroon. It's a project led by CARE USA, and it's actually in partnership with this 35 women-led organization, or it's an implementation of the call to action, the global call to action of on the protection from gender-based violence, which is really something where or a coalition or something where funders, donors, INGOs, like international non-governmental organizations, and women-led NGOs have come together to say we have to work collaboratively to actually address the issues of gender-based violence in a humanitarian setting, and really by drawing a roadmap with different objectives on how we can actually intentionally address issues of gender-based violence in emergency situations. So typically, the project is carried out in the humanitarian setting, and in Africa, it's carried out in Mali, in Niger, and in Cameroon. And in Cameroon, we are the lead for of the project, but we work with 35 women all over Cameroon, or in the 8 regions of Cameroon, torn apart by the crisis. So what we've been able to do, or what we do, is by working with structural gatekeepers or gatekeepers of power. And by what that means is really working with religious leaders, with traditional leaders, to see how we can bring change, to deconstruct these toxic masculinities and reconstruct better ones, which is more conducive. Because we've learned that during the humanitarian crisis, most often people run to their religious leaders, their traditional leaders, as for safety or to seek for support. So by working hand in glove with these religious leaders, with these traditional leaders, we are able to technically address the issue of gender-based violence, and also by building their capacity, because we in a Cameroonian setting, more than half of the population are Christians, and they rely on what their religious leaders say. And during times of times of this emergency, they always fall back to the religious leaders. So it's very important for these persons, or for these religious leaders, for these traditional leaders, to be armed with information, to give or with the correct information to offer services when it comes to gender-based violence. So they are also careful on what they actually say out there in churches. And also, some of the things we've been able to do is to build capacity with this women-led organization, really by identifying capacity building capacity needs of these women-led organizations we work with, because we've had the whole discussion where the issue of localization, where women don't have funds, because you see, typically when in a Cameroonian setting, when funds, or in globally, when the funds are being sent to the international non-governmental organizations, because they feel that the local organizations or the women-led organizations lack capacity to actually address issues of gender-based violence. And by the time it's reaching to us, the women-led organization, you see that the funds become smaller. And what happens when it becomes smaller? There is no time to do a proper gender analysis of situations, to do a need assessment, and all of these things. So by really building the women-led organizations' capacity in how to maybe develop policies in their organizations, which policies by developing, having ideas around how to address gender-based violence, actually helps to bridge that gap when it comes to localization, and so that they can actually develop community-based approaches, which is very sensitive in addressing issues of gender-based violence in our setting.
Yeah, leaving the aspect of gender-based violence, it's just, oh, I can see Esther is joining us. Esther is trying to connect her audio, so this is fantastic. Let's see if we can have a video too. Esther, can you hear us? Hello, Esther? Let's see, she's joining us. Yeah, all right, so, okay, but Nafomi, just summing up, as we know from CARE 2, is that CARE is trying to use women as the empowerment of women is a crucial and is a vital strategic act when it comes to going forward and just trying to find a path out of crisis situations. So this is what you have been commenting. Lovely. Esther, we can see you. Hello, Esther. Hello. Don't leave us. Hello, Esther. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me? Are you able to?
We do hear you. Lovely.
Esther. I'm joining using Esther's link. My apologies. My name is Master Chaba. I'm with the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation's Africa Regional Office in Joburg. There was a sudden conflict with Esther. Hopefully she'll try and join soon again, but she had a sudden audience request with the German foreign minister. So that's why she's not able to come in now. So I just came to just apologize very briefly to say that unfortunately this came when she wasn't expecting it and she was just pushed away.
We just work with it. But are you in a position to give us background on Cameroon too, or are you in a position to talk about Cameroon?
Not necessarily, no, not to the extent that Esther or Mom would be able to do it. But of course, she is somebody who we work with in the region, and she's the person who we had actually put forward in terms of making the contribution. We have done 2 previous podcasts before on Cameroon and the Anglophone crisis, but I know she mostly speaks from the perspective of peace building in terms of what her organization Reach Out does with that respect, and also the empowerment and rehabilitation of women who are victims from what is happening from these minority regions in the southwest of Cameroon.
But talking about peacekeeping missions, that would be cool to just, if you, on behalf of Esther, could give us an idea of the scale of her work, because she has been receiving accolades over accolades when it comes to her peacekeeping missions, and she has been helping the internally displaced people in the thousands. So can you give us an idea of how valuable Esther's contribution to Cameroonian peacemaking missions is?
I can certainly speak a little bit to it. She's one person, as I said, who was actually pre-identified for us through the German embassy in Cameroon as one of the 4 frontliners in terms of her fight. Someone as well who has, unfortunately, her own person and her family been affected by situations of kidnapping, intimidation, her personal possessions also being destroyed. She's one person who's very respected in that community, especially because she gives a voice to women through her organization, Reach Out. She's a person who's also very able to mobilize. Unfortunately, I can't speak of statistics at the moment, but she's a person who definitely speaks her truth, and she lives her truth. And as a person as well, who even to date, I mean, we just had a study tour entitled Face Me, which is, it was a study tour of African human rights defenders. And while we were actually on the tour, one of the people from her shelter, if I'm not mistaken, was actually murdered. And she was dealing with that situation while she was on her way. And then even another one happened while she was there. She's a person who's always hands-on. And a person who is always there to assist. She also has buy-in also from security and safety, even from the soldiers, I understand, because of the weighted, just in terms of her position and how boldly she stands out and speaks on these issues. Yeah, and it also just goes to say the fact that she wowed everybody today at this particular conference. I'm actually just trying to get the name. And immediately after that, the German foreign minister requested an audience with her, and that's what she's currently doing right now.
Yeah, this is wonderful, and we were sure that she's giving her all and her best to convey this message of peacekeeping in Cameroon. We appreciate a lot you giving us the background. Will you be with us until the end of our web talk, or will you just hop off and just?
I worry that in case she tries to jump on again, she might not be able to join with the same thing. But I am currently speaking to her on WhatsApp. Yeah. So maybe I'll just throw her a line, maybe when she's ready to come on, but I'll stay on.
All right. Thank you very much. Your name again? How your name?
It's Masechaba. It's Masechaba Daka, and I'm the Regional Program Officer for Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. This is Sub-Sahara Regional Office.
We appreciate so much that you gave us the background and lovely. So we are trying to go back to Nafomi, and whenever you Esther might be able to hop in, we are more than honored to have a break. Thank you very much.
I'll definitely keep you updated.
Thank you. So we are trying to find Nafomi. It seems as if we had lost Nafomi while we were talking to you to Cape Town, Joburg. I'm not sure what we are doing right now. Are we trying to get Nafomi back? Hopefully. Yeah, this is a live web talk, and just once again appeal to our audience. If you have any questions, if you would like to give us your comments, you're more than welcome to do so. And our technical support is trying to reach Nafomi again. So let's see. While we're doing so. As our other panelist is just missing. Could you step in once again to help us give a little bit context on Cameroon and the contribution Friedrich-Naumann Foundation is doing when it comes to supporting Cameroon? Well, you're working from Joburg to do that. Can you hear me in Johannesburg? Did you get my question? Okay, so you didn't get my question. All right, so we are switching to Nafomi. Nafomi, good to have you back. Thank you very much for joining us again. Our colleague in Johannesburg was kind enough to give us a background on Esther's peacekeeping mission. And now, Nafomi, just researching Cameroon, inevitably, violence is coming up. We do read about the clashes, the violence when it comes to the French-speaking and the English-speaking people, Boko Haram people, gender-based violence. Why is it that violence is so prevalent when it comes to Cameroon and the way people seem to interact?
Okay, gender-based violence or violence is it's typically used as a tool of war in terms of humanitarian crisis. And typically in Cameroon, most often, both men and women actually face these issues of gender-based violence, although they suffer from these issues disproportionately. Like typically in the Anglophone setting or in the Anglophone crisis, you discover that men and boys are being molested, are being killed, are being beaten in just around the issue of the crisis. And again, there's that fear that with the issue of the gender stereotype and the gender roles, right, where men are seen as powerful. So most times, because of that fear and the fear that men are going to rise to actually try to fight back and all of these things. So men are actually seen victimized and beaten, killed, and most times the members of the non-state armed groups always identify men to join them and all of these things just for, let me use the struggle, the typical word used in the Anglophone context. But women and girls suffer too a lot when it comes to these issues, because you would see that women are being raped times without number. You see an escalating rise when it comes to rape. You see an escalating rise when it comes to sexual harassment, just to give issues surrounding that. So we did a survey in 2020 and we discovered, or we recorded a 54.7 prevalence of sexual harassment in our context. And typically some of these persons who actually harass these women and girls are the police officers in checkpoints, the members of the non-state armed group, and so on and so forth. So the people who hold power are typically the ones doing the rape and the harassment of these women and girls. And also most times girls are being sent off for marriage as a means of safety. So typically when you come to the Anglophone setting and this family wants to actually get to be safe, and because they fear the state armed group or the non-state armed group, they tend to exchange their girls. They give the girls so that that party in turn protects the family from from any form of violence or any issues of human rights when it comes to that context. And the Cameroonians, or in our settings, people, there's that misconception, or that the information about gender-based violence, the information about human rights, it's not really understood. So knowing that one of the cause of gender-based violence is when people actually disrespect, or when people actually disregard human rights. You see that the rise in gender-based violence typically escalates in a setting. And again, knowing that you don't have who to go to, and given that who you're supposed to run to are the people who hold power in our community. So at times women and girls have nowhere to go to, and the violence just keeps repeating itself, being rampant, and women and girls deeply suffer.
Yeah, looking at the constitutional right, it is very obvious that in Cameroon women do not have the full equity when it comes to constitutional rights. Just researching it, it is obvious that women's status is lower compared to men. Traditionally, head of households are men. Men, husbands, have the right to choose the place of residence. And many other aspects, just underlying that women do not have equal rights compared to men. How can we just break this vicious circus of dominance when it comes to men and women? What is the recipe? What is the hope to just break this vicious circle of power, of violence, and to the detriment of women?
Yes, thank you very much for that. So you've typically said, like, when it comes to the law, in terms of policy and in terms of the practice, actually, women and girls are not actually favored, or at times, even when it seems to be favorable for women, they still exist those loopholes that actually give men the upper hand to actually do what they want, or just give them more rights that compared to women. You're talking about the issue when it comes to the land rights. You're talking about the issue when it comes like the widowhood rituals and so on and so forth. So I think one of the important things to actually do is to use gender transformative approaches to work closely with men and boys, because these people, men and boys hold power. There is power. Because men and boys hold power, they are in charge of policy making, they're in charge of decision making, and so they hold so much power in the society. So it's extremely important for us to work collaboratively with men and boys in addressing issues of gender-based violence, but still holding them accountable to women and girls, because there's a whole issue of, okay, we are going to let the men have this power or work collaboratively, but there is that conflict when it comes now to the power at the end of the day, still having that power. So the men and boys, we have to work collaboratively with men and boys to address issues of gender-based violence, gender inequalities, or gender injustice in our community, but still hold them accountable to women-led organizations, feminist organizations, and women and girls in the different communities we work with, and really seeing the benefits of being being equal as men and boys, because men in a society where to be a man, it's something, it's cagey. It's already, they are already in cagey. So there's that whole issue, like, to deconstruct the mindsets and reconstruct better mindsets, promote positive masculinities, and so on and so forth, and really working with traditional leaders and religious leaders, because again, these people are typically still the men. So by working with them so that we have gender transformative approaches, but still making sure women are the center, because it's very important for women's voices to be heard, because nothing for women without the women. So women and girls must have to share their experiences and lead discussions surrounding these issues.
You are co-author of a study regarding militarized masculinities, in which you and the other authors are trying to give us an idea of how boys and men can be used productively to just assist women, and as well in the context of peace building missions, because obviously weapon and masculinity goes well together in Cameroon, right? Why is that? Why do have men access to weapons? Why do they get emboldened? Why does society in Cameroon allows this type of mechanism?
Okay, so talking about the study or the research we did, or the project we did. So the project, it was actually an international initiative which was led by the Women International League of Peace and Freedom, and Men Engage in the global at the global level. So some of the countries that actually implemented this project, or actually did the research, and was Cameroon. So I supported this work as a member of the Men Engage Alliance in Cameroon. So typically we did research to understand the conceptions of how men perceive the issue of power, how the people, the non-state armed group, targeted the non-state armed group. We laid focus on the state armed group. We laid focus of government officials, men and boys, women and girls. And one of the things we actually realized that typically, because we worked also with traditional leaders, most of these persons are men. So there, because of the culture of patriarchy and this intentional effort for men and boys to keep power or to hold power, you discover that at times it's out. You discover that at times they want to show how masculine there is, because when we had focus group discussion with men and boys to understand why they actually do what they do, or why they actually are perpetrators of violence and all of these things, and we discovered that most of these things were rooted in culture, because it was literally no explanation for it. We are men, and this is how men are supposed to act up. Women are supposed to be subordinates to men. To men, women should not speak when men are speaking. Women should not sit where men are sitting, and it was deeply rooted in culture and the issue of the patriarchy. So, and one of the issues we actually highlighted was people. The misconception about the issues of men and women working together, or the misconception about gender equality, typically in a setting. So all of these things have contributed to us really thinking, why not do like a gender transformative programming to see how we can work collaboratively with these men and boys to addressing these issues, to make sure that no one is actually left behind in making sure that we actually get our goal of attaining gender justice or social justice in the community. So the whole of these issues of violent, militarized masculinity stem up with the issue of patriarchy, men making sure that they continuously be gatekeepers of power, or have power in society, and being termed as weak, or as being weak, as being manless, because they don't portray the issue of masculinity, where masculinity is, or it's exercised or being shown by violence.
Yeah. So this is an ongoing project, as I understand, right? This is how is the status of the project?
Okay, so we started with a research, research where we actually shared findings, and currently I think the colleagues and we are now carrying out the implementation. There's an implementation phase of project to see how there's a how we can collaboratively work with men and boys when it comes to addressing or making sure that there's peace, and also getting from their perspective and using a gender lens while addressing these issues.
So to put it in a nutshell, to prevent further violence against women, you need a change of mind and emotional and status of men and boys, right? And so this seems to be, to put it in a nutshell, this seems to be the substance of change, right? To get each and everyone involved, and particularly to educate boys and men to just let them know that violence is not the answer, right?
Yes.
We already got a few questions. At least there's one. Felix is asking, and Nafomi, I just give the question to you. Are there cases of women gaining independence? And if so, how do these cases look like? So apparently we have been describing a sad reality of injustice against women. And Nafomi, can you give us examples of where women, yes, indeed, gained independence and just being a model of a changed society? So apparently we lost connection with Nafomi, so we're trying to get her on board again. Apologies to our technical mishaps today, but this is how it is. This is a live recording, and yeah, technical mishaps do happen. Felix, apologies. We try to get Nafomi back. Okay, Nafomi is back. Lovely. She is coming back to us. Nafomi, can you hear us?
Yes, I am. I'm really sorry. We had power failure.
Yeah, please. This is what happens when it comes to live audiences, and internet troubles is what we do have wherever you go. So the question Felix was asking, could you give us a positive example of women trying to gain independence, trying to lead their way out of the misery we described when it comes to gender-based violence? Are there positive role models out there you might want to highlight?
Yes, there are so many women who actually stand out when it comes to gender-based violence, doing a lot of work and serving as champions to other women in our context. So I'm just going to just name a few people that I know that they have done a lot of work when it comes to gender-based violence, and they actually like being champions in this situation. So we have work with people like Marita, who has been able to work hand in glove with women who who actually suffer from gender-based violence, by empowering them, giving them the support they need in addressing issues of gender-based violence in the communities we work with. Like Lumlis, I think she's one of the young girls, or she's one of the people in our communities who were actually forced to flee out of the Anglophone, from Bamenda, which is a city in the Northwest region, because of the Anglophone crisis, but still have been able to stand up to do work in regards to gender-based violence, to champion young girls like her when it comes to stand up for their rights, and just doing work around that, which is really, really good, given the experience and really understanding the intersectionality, how intersectionality plays in these issues, being a young girl from the Anglophone region with the marginalization and all of these things. So by really trying to work on all of those things and serving as champions, or being models or role models for other women and girls to actually really want to see that they can push through and be to be survivors and in this context.
What is your take on the future when it comes to Cameroon, and how is Cameroon going to overcome separatist demands from the Anglophone region in Cameroon, and how is it handled politically? I mean, what is your take on Cameroon's future when it comes to these separatist action within Cameroon?
This is something that it's one to say that we can easily achieve or actually step away from the issues of crisis or the humanitarian crisis is really it's really difficult, because the different interests align when it comes to these crises, and looking like forward next 5 years and next 10 years, there's really huge difficulties when we see in terms of completely eradicating the forms of marginalization and all of these things, because it also comes with the policies, and the English speakers have find the need for an equitable policies that actually make them to stand in favor, and talking about the issues of hate speech, how to really deconstruct or to really stop issues when it regards to hate speech, the crisis and all of these things. So it's something really difficult to say that we are going to address these issues right now, but we everyone, separatists, the non-state armed group, everyone has to really think about it, think about the human rights violations, think about how we can actually sit together and provide sustainable solutions to this crisis. Without that, I don't think that we can easily solve the crisis if people don't let behind their egos, people don't sit and really see how we can bring about a sustainable solution.
Talking about internally displaced persons due to natural disasters, due to other power threatening them, so many thousands of people had been forced to leave homes. How is the status right now in Cameroon when it comes to internally displaced people? Because this is a huge drag on the health system, right? I mean, and health and social system, I figure.
Yes, due to the crisis, we realized that many people have been forced to flee from their homes, and fleeing from their homes and going to different areas means they cannot easily access healthcare care services, or let's say sexual and reproductive health and rights services. They have to readjust to the culture there, because Cameroon has over 250 ethnic groups, and each of these ethnic groups have different cultures. So just imagine living your own context and from your own cultural practice to another context, and all of these things. There are a lot of difficulties when it comes to this, trying to access services. And typically, because Cameroon, we have two systems. We have in terms of education, and many of in education and many other things. So just imagine an Anglophone moving to a French area and trying to seek education, even though there are Anglophone schools there, but the issue of the teacher to student ratio, and the issue of really accessing this, the issue of language barrier, the issue of services, the issues of housing, the issues, it's a huge issue when it comes to Cameroon, and really having service providers or organizations that work in camps, or who can actively address issues of women and girls, or issues concerning the sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment, which is typically prevalent in these areas. And women typically looking for a means of survival, and their rights being abused by in the communities they work with, and because they feel that they have to just survive, and they endure this violence, which is really terrible in our context. So it's a situation which capacity, knowledge, information, sensitization has to be constantly done, and also the issue of support when it comes to funds and all of these things, so that these women can seek the appropriate help they need, or to actually become whoever they want to become, and also so that they can actually address the issue of gender equality in the future. Because just look, when they move, at times they health services, and if women and girls cannot access with quality at the best quality, it actually hampers or actually endangers the quest of gender equality.
Mm. Yeah. What are the main reasons why people have to flee? I mean, we're talking violence. We've got Boko Haram people coming over the borders and just pressing and just threatening people. Natural disasters might be another things. Disease outbreaks. I know cholera. Cholera is a topic, right?
Yes. Cholera is it's one of the things that you see is it's really a difficult issue in our context, because given that we have the Anglophone crisis again, we have at times we have a cholera outbreak, which is really a public health issue, where displaced persons already have to move again to other areas for safety, and also issues of threats, because we have the issue of threat, which is at times people fear the issue of kidnapping, where girls are being kidnapped because they are going to school, or because parents work in government institutions or non-government institutions, and all of these things, they fear for life, and all of these things, or endangering stuff like the gunshots and all of these things. People really, really fear for their lives, and they have to move, except apart from the conflict and so on. So there's some people who are actually really, really endangered, and even looking at people, the disabled persons having to move, people living with HIV having to move, and how would they access services of healthcare and all of these things. So there are a lot of issues when it comes to the humanitarian setting, or when it comes to the Anglophone crisis, or when it comes to the Boko Haram crisis, or the Central African Republic crisis in Cameroon.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've got another question, a very specific one, when it comes to people who do not define on a binary scale. The question is gender-based violence against non-binary people a factor in Cameroon too?
Yes. So typically, Cameroon in its law is very typical about the traditional gender identity, male and female. So the other forms,
you're male or feminine, and there's nothing other.
Yes, they don't want the idea of other forms of gender identity being welcome is something really which is really difficult, because the law actually the law is biased in that sense, and also the people, the culture, and the religion is not welcoming. And these persons, or if these persons are if seen or being taught, imagined of being identifying with different identity, face a lot of gender-based violence. So in the context in where we live in, you don't need to identify as a male or female. So I just need to dress like a man to say without identifying that I belong to this person, or I just need to put a chain on my leg. So it's typically a way of dressing, the bodily autonomy and all of these things, and people just feel they just attribute some kind of the way people dress to identifying to gender identity, and these people who identify with it identify differently from the traditional male and female face extreme extreme issues of vulnerability. They're extremely vulnerable to gender-based violence in their context, and worst off is in this humanitarian context. So it's really an issue which calls for protection, which calls for addressing in our context.
Mm. So it is this question regarding tolerance when it comes to how you identify sexually, but I imagine ethnically, as well. How open is society when it comes to accepting the huge number of ethnic varieties in Cameroon? I mean, you had been giving us the number, right, about the number of ethnicities in Cameroon society. Let's see if we can catch up with Nafomi. Internet just broke down again. Yeah. Nafomi, because the internet quality is unfortunately is very bad. So just very shortly, what are your hopes?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
For Cameroon? What are your projects? What are your hopes for a better future for Cameroon?
Yes, so I'm really looking forward to collaborations between all members of the community, be it women and girls, being men and boys, being government officials, being the non-state armed group, the state armed group, being the religious leaders, the donors, and everyone in the community working hand in glove, working in collaboration in addressing issues when it comes to community, and really making sure that we are accountable to each other, and so we can adequately justice in our community.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Nafomi, for being with us. You gave us a very authentic idea of how your day-to-day fight for the better future in Cameroon, and especially girls and women is. Lovely to have you here, and unfortunately we had a little bit of technical problems, but you were more than capable of just conveying us how intense your day-to-day fight for better Cameroon is. Thank you so much, and please take care of yourself, keep on fighting, and we are really looking forward to have you with us again in the future. So Nafomi, thank you very much. We had to just cut the video to make sure perhaps we could have a final glimpse of Nafomi, our tech guy. Can you give us a video, a Nafomi video, so at least we can say goodbye to her by a video? Here she is. Nafomi, thank you very much once again. It was a delight to have you with us, and thank you very much for answering the questions, giving us so many dedicated questions. Once again, if you're interested in this series, next web talk will be June 20th, and we're going to cover Angola. Yeah, and for the time being, all the best to you, Nafomi, and Cameroon. And unfortunately, Esther couldn't join us, but she is bringing the message in favor of Cameroon, just bringing it to our Ministry of External Relations. So hopefully for the better, and so we can support you as best we can. And here's the lady from Joburg again. Thank you very much for trying to find us last minute panelists, but unfortunately you couldn't, but you gave us a message on behalf of Esther, and we appreciate your work, and to you too, lots of strength and power at Friedrich-Naumann Foundation in Johannesburg, and obviously to Nafomi in Cameroon. Talk to you soon. Please stay safe. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.